Janitra Taylor, thank you so much for coming on to the Power Up with Manal podcast. This is such an honor because you speak to so many people out there that will benefit from listening and getting inspired from your journey. I mean, you are Chief Product Officer at a very young age. You set your goals and standards. Also, I know you're going to tell everybody the story about how you as a child set yourself up for the success that you have today. You've also persevered a lot. We've been in industries that weren't very, I would say, minority female friendly all the time. Mm-hmm. We have worked together in the past. We are not only coworkers, but we are now soul sisters.
Yes.
So I am so happy that you're here. If you don't mind taking a moment, sharing with our audience who is Janitra Taylor and a little bit about your journey on how you are now Chief Product, I'm going to say it again. My sister is Chief Product Officer. Yes.
Well, thank you for having me on. This is really an honor, especially when I think about when we met 5 years ago and to see us here today. So I'm just extremely honored and humbled to be here with you. So a little bit about me. I am Janitra Taylor. I am from Philadelphia, born and raised. I am a product.
I was going to start singing. Where I spend most of my days.
And I tell everyone, I'm a product of a single parent household. So my mom had me at the age of 20 years old while she was in college. And she raised me, by herself without any assistance from my father. And I think seeing that really helped me just tell myself, like, if my mom can do it with a child,
right,
I have no excuses, right? I can do it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like that really helped me in my career path and my journey from that perspective.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thanks. So I went to school, of course, in the public school district there while growing up. My grandparents also took a heavy hand in raising me, especially when mom had to work or do whatever else that she was doing. And I tell everybody, I had the best of both worlds. My grandmom was really good at English. And so she made sure that I was going to be strong in English.
Yeah.
My grandfather was extremely smart, skipped a couple of grades, by the way, in math and science. And at the time growing up as a kid, they tell you, your child's only going to be strong in math or they're only going to be strong in English. And my grandparents said, oh, no, she's going to be strong in both.
Oh, my God. I love that.
So that really helped.
You got to love grandparents.
I loved they're not here anymore, but I loved my grandparents. I learned so much from them.
What a great foundation, especially because your foundation isn't what, typically people are like, oh, this upbringing, this private school, this. But that's not everybody's journey.
No.
And there's so much that you learn and take away from the people in your life that's so important. And your mother, for everyone out there today that's a single parent, not just a mother, but you could be a single father as well. Just to hear stories like that, I bet, one, it helps somebody out there that's not feeling so good today feel a little better, right? And that we all have our own journey. We should focus on that path and the best outcome we can get out of it, right? Because you can't control what you can't control. And I think that's something we miss when we're so focused on fitting in.
I think we're in a world of social media, which is pros and cons to it from that perspective. And so we find ourselves, oh, well, this person has this, or they're wearing this, or they're excelling their career there. Focus on your own path and your own journey. And for me, that's what's really helped me and my upbringing is that I focus on Janitra. I focus on the things that I can control. And I can't compare myself at the end of the day. I'm only in competition with myself. When I wake up in the morning, I'm challenging myself to say, can you do better? Can you be a better person than you were the day before?
Because you can only control yourself.
That's it. And so I don't believe in competition. I do have people that I'm inspired by, of course.
Of course,
Michelle Obama, very classy.
Oh my God, did you read her book?
I loved her book. I loved her book and seeing her upbringing and seeing she grew up, poor, different things like that. And, made it all the way to Princeton, became this lawyer. She was very successful before she even, made it to the White House. And so I look at things like that when I'm feeling a little down or I need a little pick me up. I like to read stories about strong, powerful, diverse women who within any industry to really help myself get motivated.
Yeah. And I feel like we also, just taking it back to workplaces and diversity and inclusion. And if you don't feel so included in our situation, it's a specific path that we went through. We were minority females in the financial services industry. And I know maybe female generally wasn't so prominent in that industry, right? Like 10 years ago, so forth. So we have this experience. People go through different experiences of not feeling included or whatnot. But I feel like the network, the getting together and trying to make a difference, the motivating and lifting each other up, we couldn't control the situation we were in, but what could we do? We could give ourselves a chance and build a path for us to have a better future. Like you said, where we were 5 years ago versus where we are today, right?
Totally different. And I don't even think we had big dreams, but I still don't think that we knew it would be here 5 years. So it just tells you, if you really stick to your journey, stick to your path, and put a plan together, you can do anything. Yeah. And that's really, from my perspective, I really try to give back to young women, to different diverse people from that perspective, to show like, I made it, and I'm here. And yes, it took blood, it took sweat. I cry on the phone to my mom, but I got here.
Wait, I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that because we also feel sometimes, and this could go for many individuals, I feel like sometimes maybe women feel it more, but anyone can feel this. I feel like we have to be so strong that we can't have emotions. That we have to be so strong, right? That we walked into the office every day, could not shed a tear because the type A leader was supposedly what was the right leader. Correct. I think being in touch personally with my feminine self has made me a better leader because now I have a better balance and I'm more comfortable in my own skin. And I'm also, I think, more transparent because when I want to cry, I do cry. That's okay. Now, poise is important, of course. Like you can't get angry at situations. I'm not saying go out there and be all, but I feel like when things are tough, it's okay to have emotions, and I think that's why so many people go through anxiety, depression. They feel like they're putting up a front, but they can never
be their true selves,
right?
And it's really hard because in the industry that we were both in financial service industry, there was a point a couple years ago where they said, hey, we want you to bring your whole selves to work. Yeah. Do you know what that really entails if you ask me to bring my whole self to work?
I'm going to put that in quotes. Bring your whole self to work.
And that entails a lot because, at the end of the day, my whole self, I could come in, I could be bubbly one day, but you have no idea what I went through the day before, that morning. People have breakups. I experienced breakups and still had to come into the workplace with a smile on my face. So what do we mean by bringing our whole selves to work from that perspective? And what you're saying too around, having to kind of put this facade on. Yes. I remember when we worked together back in the day, having just really bad days and not even wanting to come into work and just trying to like avoid the naysayers. And what I would do is I would put on my headsets and I would put on some song that got me pumped up. Right. And I walked into the office with that song on. Mm-hmm. And when I walked in, I felt like she's arrived. Right. But people have no idea. They probably just think, oh, she's listening to music. No, I had to put myself in the mode. Because I had to be able to compete. I had to be able to do well from that perspective and perform. I had to get my mindset right from that perspective.
You're elevating your mindset. This balance of what it means to bring your wholesome self to work, but also have a certain level of executive presence, right? Because we can all bring our whole self to work, but there is some form of diplomacy that takes place in the workplace, right? And maybe this is getting a little forgotten these days, and maybe I challenge it a little bit, but there is a sense of executive presence when things are going awry and your first instinct is to just, because you might be angry, there might be a situation, but to keep your poise and really think through the situation and problem solve, get a team together, maybe even be transparent about it that, hey, this is a real bad situation. We got to get out of it, right? I think that balance, is it missing a little bit or we're shifting away from it? Or is it harder in a digital workplace?
I think it's harder in a digital workplace. So, we're mostly remote nowadays from that perspective. Sometimes we're not on camera, so we can't read each other's facial expressions. And sometimes I think it's not just facial expressions. I need to be able to view your body language.
Yes, that's
because
true.
I won't know what's wrong or something's happening from that perspective. And I think there's this other piece of just people thinking like, well, I can't say anything. Afraid to speak up.
Oh, yes.
And maybe it's that you don't even know when you can and cannot speak up from that perspective. And you're right, there are things that happened in my past where I have been completely upset, where I have wanted to quit. And I wanted to say, do you know who I am? Okay. From that perspective. And I can't say those things. So what I did do is I built a network of friends like you, from that perspective,
it's
where
so important.
I can say exactly what I want to say.
Yeah.
It's said there, and then I can calm down, come back in.
Yes.
My other thing too is if something really array goes wrong at work, what I try to do is let me take 10 minutes for a walk.
Yes.
Because that way I can calm back down.
Yes.
And I can still explain what happened when I come back, but I won't be on 10.
Yes.
I'll be able to have that executive presence. Yes. And I think it's not really taught as much either. I think
not.
What you and I chatted about the other day, right? There's not debate classes anymore.
Nope.
People aren't doing big PowerPoint presentations and having to prepare for that and know what to say.
Right.
So a part of that is missing, that executive presence. And what does executive presence mean?
Yeah, because it's so hard because it's not something you can measure, right?
No.
Because it's more holistic. And you have to observe an individual over a period of time in different scenarios and situations. And then, the biggest one, and I think you've touched on it since the beginning of this interview, is knowing thyself. You know who you are. We're not perfect.
No.
When you look at yourself in that mirror and that person that's speaking in your head and has the real thoughts, that's your real self. That self, not a single soul in the world knows.
No.
That's why you have to be real with yourself. You have to be real. You have to replay situations and you got to fall forward, right?
And you have to be accountable.
Yes.
I think that's the piece to me that's missing nowadays is accountability.
Yes.
And if you're not accountable, then you can't say, well, in this situation, I might have done this wrong.
Right.
And it's all about learning. We're going to fail different things that we're going to try.
Right.
We're going to make mistakes. But do you take time to set aside and say, what happened? What went wrong? What could I have done better?
Right.
Let me challenge myself to be better.
Right.
If you don't do that and become accountable, you're not going to grow. You're going to stay stagnant.
Right.
And no one is going to actually tell you that. And that's the other thing. No one's going to tell you should have done this or you should have done this.
No.
They're not going to, they're not going to hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable.
You do. So with how did your, maybe college and after college journey sort of mold all this together? Because everything's a learning experience, right? We weren't always perfect.
No,
I'm
it's still not.
I'm here, still not, yes.
We're still not perfect. So I would definitely say from my perspective, I knew at a very early age, when I was like 13 or 14 years old, I came home to my mom, was like, I'm going into corporate America. And I think
you said 13 or 14?
I knew it. I knew at 13, 14, I'm going to corporate America. And I'm like, I want to be chief marketing officer or CEO. I knew at that age. Yes. And I've been working for, since that age. And I think what attracted me is that when I grew up, my mom would take me to work and different things like that. And I love that she had this corner office and everyone's dressed in the business attire. Yeah. And my mom was running things. My mom was in some type of manager level. Yeah. And I was in all of that. And I think the other piece of that too.
I love how you were so inspired by your mother.
I'm very inspired.
First
to this day.
I will give mom a little shout out too, because not only was she Miss Corporate, but then she branched off and became this super entrepreneur. Yes. So, wow.
She's celebrating 15 years this year.
And you know what? She ain't perfect.
No.
But she was a motivational force and she coached and you grew together and you fell forward together. And that's what's important. I think a lot of parents need to hear that you don't have to be perfect.
No, you don't. And my mom shared things at different levels where I would see, I didn't see her really cry a lot when I was younger, but I did see it when I got older. And I replay events back and I'm like, you dealt with that?
Yeah.
Wow. My father telling her, you're not going to be anything. You're not going to amount to anything.
Right.
Well, look at her now. She's higher than he is, much higher, blows him out the scale. But being said to that, and how does she go through that and still build her confidence? I'm like amazed by that, all the time.
I'm amazed
from
too.
that perspective.
Yeah.
So I would say that really helped. And I think me expressing to my mom the path I wanted to go, that kind of helped her shape to put me in the right activities for summertime. So I got put into a lot of prep classes during the summertime for college where I had to learn presentations. Yes. And that's where I feel like I learned my executive presence from that perspective, where I was challenged to work in different team groups so I can know different personalities from that perspective, where my mom would say at the end of school year, you know what, we're going to go to the bookstore and I'm going to get you math and science books that are 2 to 3 years above you from that perspective.
Wow. Because
my mom thing was, you're going to be ahead of the curve and we're going to prepare you to be ahead of the curve.
I love that.
And so from that perspective, I knew probably 15, 16 that I wanted to either go to an Ivy League school or a private school because I was an African-American, woman, And I wanted to see like, what else does the world look like from that perspective? Because I was just in Philadelphia. And so from there, you know, we did a lot of, my mom sent me to like Georgetown for the summer. So I just got to be like engrossed in different environments.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
And I think
I'm taking notes. I gotta take some notes here. Okay, my son's about to, you know, he's 16.
and the other thing too, which is I appreciate it now that I'm older. I think when I was 16 or 17, my mom's like, hey, you've only been to Canada. You haven't really been out the country. And the people that you're going to go to college with, they're going to be well versed. And my mom's like, you're not going to be behind. And my mom took me to Spain.
Oh, I love that. So she started international travel.
Yes.
That's the same thing I'm going to be doing. Yes.
And I think I didn't understand it back then, but it helped when I had those introductions at, I ended up going to Villanova University. When I had those introductions at Villanova, I got to talk about, yes, I've been to Spain and I looked at these museums and these art galleries and the architecture, and it helped me to be more cultured. And that was key growing up.
Mindset. You saw different cultures, you met different people, you saw different ways of life, different types of work environments. Like it's so important. That diversity of thought is so important. And you got it and your mom infused it at such a young age, which is so key.
That was really key for me. And I think the other piece too, when I look back at high school, I guess other people probably had fun in high school. But when I looked at high school as a job because I knew my mom was a single mom and I wanted to go to these big schools that cost money. And the schools I was applying to, my mom's like, listen, I saved for you to go to this college. And I told her, I said, just don't worry about it, Mom. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get a scholarship. I just need you to believe in me. And I landed over $1 million in scholarship money. And I ended up going to Villanova on a full scholarship.
Yeah, you're mentoring my son. That's we've already made this assessment.
And you know, I reflect on that from perspective, but I looked at school as like, this is high school. This is, you know, yes, I still had fun. I did other activities, but I knew it was a business. I had a business mindset at that age. Like, if I do this, this can happen. And I think I understood at a very early age that my brain could get me paid.
Yes. You know, that's interesting because I and we talked about this, and I'm going to start a venture in this space for teenagers. But I feel like more than anything, because you can always learn a process, a new skill, right? You can always learn that. But the mental fitness is something that doesn't come easy. No. And at a young age, what I hear that your mother did really well was she prepared you. Mentally, you are expanding and understanding what you were accountable for, what you had to prioritize, right? Mm-hmm. How important that was, that things are going to get hard, but how do you push through and how do you persevere, right? Like these are such great...
The soft skill sets.
Yeah, they call them soft skills, but I feel like they're the skills.
Yeah, it's
like
these skills
that
help separate
want to get rid of the term soft skills. Like it is the skills. These skills. You're not going to be a good leader. You're not going to be a good parent. You're just better in society.
Yes.
And mental fitness doesn't mean you're strong all the time. It means recognizing when you need to take a step back. It means recognizing when you need to balance or let go of things because you're breaching burnout, right? Mm-hmm. When you understand that you got to walk away from a situation even though you can prove a point, right? Like,
yes.
These are levels of emotional maturity that, yes, they take time to learn. Absolutely. But also it would help our youth so much if we had more programs designed to help them think through that.
And you know what's key is...
That's my goal, baby. That's my goal. I'm going to say it right here. I'm going to manifest it because I want to provide this gift for teenagers. I really do.
And I think the piece too is like something that the term I learned probably maybe 5 years into working is this whole EQ versus IQ, this emotional intelligence. And there's, I had one of my managers, one of my favorite managers.
Some of us didn't grow up with emotional intelligence. Okay, let me just tell you.
And you know what, too? They won't tell you that you're lacking it. I had one of my good managers. He was saying how, he accelerated really well from a young age at Bank of America. And he spoke about how some of his friends that he started with, they're like they were lower levels than me. And he said the reason is they would do all this stuff right, like the actual process, but the emotional intelligence was missing. And no one's going to tell you that. I don't understand why I keep getting passed up. Do you have the emotional intelligence? And that is something that really can't be taught, especially by the time you're an adult from that perspective. It goes back to what you're saying of like, how do we, get rid of this term soft skills, right?
Yes.
And prepare the younger ones from that perspective to have that mental capacity, that mental ability, and also surround ourselves with people who are going to hold us accountable.
That's such a good topic. Surrounding yourself. And can I ask you a question? This may be a little personal. Because I'm in my feels. I've kind of gone through this just a little bit. But do you feel that because you are a driven individual, you're ambitious, you have an open mind, so you continuously learn, gain knowledge, change, we evolve, right? But I find that as I evolve maybe through the decades, 20s, 30s, I now, crossed the 40s, crossed into the 40s, I just find it so hard because I feel like my network is changing, but you love your history and the people you grew up with. But it's interesting how like, as you evolve, I almost feel like I heard somebody say, I don't know if it was Elon Musk. I think it was Elon Musk. And he was like, it gets lonely. Oh, you know what? Simon Sinek said this really well too. He said, it's funny because entrepreneurship sometimes, because he's now kind of, evolving and he continuously evolves. He said, sometimes it gets real lonely because I realize, because he's like, I have people, but the people I was close with, I kind of moved away from, but they're still there. It's not like you let them go, but like who you connect with, how you grow further, like it does kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it kind of changes too.
And it's really difficult. And
it's hard.
It's hard. And for me, what I was taught is that if you're the smartest person in your circle, it's time to get a new circle.
Oh, that's such a good way to say it. Yes.
And that to me has helped when things go awry and I'm like, I don't understand. I've been friends with this person for so long and I don't want to have to cut them off. And I have to remind myself, are you the smartest in your circle? And not on any type of cocky level, but just more of, if I'm the smartest in the circle, then I'm not learning anymore.
Exactly.
No one's there to challenge me.
Exactly.
And I need to be able to, and now my growth is stagnant. And there are some, unfortunately, who want to be the top dog in their circle of friends.
But that's not us.
That's not us.
Because we want to continuously grow.
I don't want to cap
and strive.
I don't want to cap on my success from that perspective.
So you need to build that continuous evolution of network around you is also very important, right? It's so important. I thought about this a lot this weekend, and I was like, okay, if our network were evolving as we evolve, I think the biggest maybe lesson for any of us is how do you balance sort of your family, friends, older network, right? Because balance is key, right? Because I do feel there is a little bit of this cancel culture, right?
Don't get me canceled, Manal.
I'm not. I don't know how to cancel anybody. Hi, my name is Manal Keen, and I can never cancel anyone. Sometimes your strength is your weakness, but putting boundaries maybe is important. Maybe not expecting. There are certain situations maybe I'm in, especially now that I'm moving into entrepreneurship, where I want to call somebody and I want to talk about it, right? But I find that there are people that I would maybe call for other things that I cannot call for talking about my business with, And so maybe I need to understand where those paths are, and who's good for what, because there are like,
you have to have different friends for different things.
And I agree.
Think that's key. And I think it's like, yes, we're going to evolve and we'll evolve our networks, but it doesn't mean we're going to forget those. So I have to, and that's kind of helped me from that perspective of this person was still someone I was close to. So if anything major comes up in their life, I'm there from that perspective.
Yes.
But they don't really understand the mindset and what I'm going for. So no, I can't talk about certain things.
So now you got to find that network that you can, maybe even a network that's already evolved where you are striving or learning from their experiences, right? I agree.
And I think what helps is that when we take on new jobs, new experiences, you moving, being an entrepreneur, I feel like there we're able to like go and like meet new people, and we're fine with that. So if we're able to do that in our own careers, why can't we do that in our own personal lives?
Oh, that's a really
from
good
that
point.
perspective.
Yeah.
And it's just, getting out to meet new people who think, who maybe think a little bit like you, people who think different than you from that perspective. And to me, that's been key. I have friends that are younger than me and who are 20, 30 years older than me.
Yeah, that is, that's such a good point. Because diversity of the experience of your friends, we don't usually think to broaden that, but it is so important. I heard somebody, I interviewed somebody else, a great gentleman by the name of Hamza Ali. He has a company called Hamza Invest, and he actually gave this feedback. And he's like, you know what? Somebody that gave me feedback and mentored me, and I took a big risk, that person was probably like 10 years younger than me. And it's interesting how he said that. He's like, your mentor doesn't have to be somebody older. You learn from different perspectives. You hear different thought processes. I know for me, my kids are teenagers. So I'll say certain things, or I'll show them a certain idea. And the way they react ain't the way I reacted. And I'm like, oh, maybe this isn't the best idea. Okay, like, why do you think that? And then they kind of give their perspective. And I'm like, wow. Like, I have learned. And you're right. We need to that's such a good point.
You have to diversify your friends. I think you have to diversify the different races that are in your life as well, so you can learn.
You know what? That's an elephant in the room, but that's so important, because staying in a homogeneous friend group, for some of us, culturally, it is also a norm.
Yes,
right?
Agree.
But I do agree with you that diversity, it doesn't only exist in workplaces. It is in your personal life. You live and breathe what you preach, right? And that's so important. I 100% agree.
And I think that, for me, and I think that's what's really helped me going to a Villanova University, where I was one of 6 Black people that graduated from a class of 400 of a business school.
Yeah, you had to be crazy. You put yourself in a situation where you had to diversify and grow and be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. And I love that.
And that was like my key of going there from that perspective. So I was able to, and I tell people this, going to a school like that, it helped me understand the difference of ignorance versus racism.
Yeah.
And that really helped me in my career.
That's great.
From that perspective. Yeah. If I hadn't broadened my thought and been open-minded and talked to other people, I went to school with people who had never seen Black people. Yeah. And it's like, I never thought about that, but I'm like, oh, so that sometimes you're staring at me, but that doesn't mean that you don't like me. It's just like, oh, I never saw. So that helped open up my mind as well from that perspective. I think that was key. And then even where I, different places I work now, I have friends from every old company that I've ever worked with, where I can fly in for a business meeting and I can go to dinner with their family.
Yes.
And that's beautiful from that perspective. I have a friend who I just went to Charlotte, and his family cooked me a traditional Indian meal.
Oh, I love that.
And that's just so, we had never met in person, but we worked together remotely for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And come into my home. Amazing from that perspective. And I think that really has helped me to think differently. And I have friends that are like geeked out and nerdy like I am. The other day I was up on a Friday night watching the House Speaker vote, and I'm messaging at 11 and 12 o'clock on a Friday night, where I have people who judge me and say, you don't go out and you don't hang out. I had more fun sitting in my bed watching that, messaging my friends that I met at work about this. And that's okay, because I feel like people have judged me and said, you're too nerdy, you're too ambitious. From that perspective, you don't have a life. How dare you judge me when you don't know me?
But then those are the people that you kind of...
You have to cut loose.
You got to move forward.
It's 20.
I don't know if this is the right way to say, but level up, right? You got to level up a little sometimes.
It's 2023, and a lot of people got left in 2022. I'll be honest about that.
But I think that's a part of life, and I think that's okay.
It is.
It's a journey, and we need to accept that journey. Life is a journey. Mm-hmm. And there's ups, there's downs.
There's no straight path.
There's no straight path. And sometimes you go backwards. That's okay too.
That's okay.
I had to kind of understand that and learn that, because I left a great career to start some things. Maybe I wasn't very successful, right? And so there's this feeling where you've always been like an overachiever and you were always top of your class and top of this and
work for the best company,
working for the best companies, running large initiatives. And then all of a sudden things are just falling apart and you're just like, oh, okay. Let me tell you, I ain't perfect. I probably was on the bathroom floor crying one day. Okay, that happens. We're all human.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's all about what did you learn?
Yes, it's about what you learned. It's about maybe even tapping into a side of you that you didn't know existed.
And help prepare you to be here.
Yeah, because I didn't really have a side where I completely fell on my face and failed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've had challenging situations in my life, but I went to a private British school.
Mm-hmm.
I, took my O-levels, and everybody, like, when you're in the British schooling system, like, it is do or die, okay? Because you study 2 years for your O-levels, and if you don't pass that exam at the end of the 2 years, you go backwards 2 years. Yeah. So that's like your high school, right? Your O-levels, A-levels, and then you go to college. And so I was like, it started then, just like you. Yeah. And I was ambitious. And then I started my career, and I was going to prove myself. And yes, there were challenging situations, but I made it. And, there wasn't a situation where I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, everything's just falling apart.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that happened. And I learned things about me that maybe I'm not so proud of either. That maybe sometimes,
Now that's interesting. I like that. Things that I may not be so proud of.
Some things that I'm not so proud of. So, I wonder if you feel the same way. As a driven overachiever, my work is correlated to my passion.
Agreed. 100%.
Right? But when you have a lot of passion, that gets tied to a lot of feelings and emotions. Right?
It does.
Because you set your standard so high that now when you don't hit your own standard, there's nobody else out there putting the standard.
No. In our minds there is.
In our minds.
But yeah.
Like I had a hard time accepting that is who I became, that is what happened in my life. And I have forever I led large teams. I always teach people to fall forward. Things have happened in my life that were challenging. I fell forward, but this was a moment where I had a hard time falling forward.
You do a self-reflection.
I had to self-reflect. I had to get myself back. But I also feel like I was in burnout, I guess. I burnt myself out.
Yeah.
And so I think it was like a
You've
combination.
been on go for so long.
Yes. And I say this because people think that, oh, you become experienced, you've learned now. You
still make mistakes.
Hey, you can still make mistakes even after having a great career. You could make big mistakes. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it's okay. And I did learn some things that I wasn't proud of. And guess what? What does that do? Like you just said, know yourself. Learn from it. And now I am purposeful about certain things and behavior because I'm like, okay, I got to accept the outcome that this could be not successful.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Because you tried.
Yes.
And you have to give yourself credit for trying.
And I would not be in that situation. I would not have fallen flat on my face if I didn't go out and take a risk.
That's true.
Right? So now I'm proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So now the second company I'm opening up, guess what? I have learned what pushes my buttons.
That's key, knowing your triggers.
Right?
That is so, to me, that is something that I have been truly trying to understand about myself for the past few years, is understanding my triggers and then also noticing when different people I may network with or people I, invite into my life.
Yeah.
Noticing those red flags, noticing when I need to say no to.
Yeah.
Because I'm extremely passionate. I want to see the good in everybody
yes.
from that perspective. And so I give people chance after chance after chance because in my mind, I'm a good person. So why is this person not a good person?
Yeah.
Or maybe I give people excuses from
Yeah.
that perspective. And what I've been trying to do is understand what are my triggers.
Yep.
And also, being able to speak up for myself.
I love it.
I got feedback.
I feel like this is like a heightened level of understanding who you are.
Yeah, I got feedback early in my career about, from a process standpoint, amazing, great, blah, blah. But the emotional piece was you have things to say and you're afraid to speak up.
Oh.
And I didn't really understand it at the time until I got into my role after that.
Yeah.
And I sat down next to a managing director and I was taking notes and I had great ideas. And he saw my notes and questioned me after the meeting and said, you had the same thoughts I had, but you never spoke up. Why is that?
Wow. And I love that he was self-aware about that.
Very self-aware.
Yeah.
And that really helped.
And aware of how you were. Like, I love that he peeped that you had that. He wanted to bring that out.
And you did, you know.
What a great leader.
Oh, that's still to this day one of my favorite mentors. I just reached out to him the other day because he also left a big career, went into fintech, and I just reached out to him and said, hey, I'm following your footsteps. When he left, he went to become, you know, chief product officer, and now here I'm leaving, and I went to become a chief product officer. So that is someone that I definitely value, but I'm definitely, what I definitely try to do now is make sure I understand my triggers and then make sure I speak up for myself, either professional or personal.
Right.
And because if not, it's going to stay bottled up in here and I'm going to erupt. And I don't want to do that from that perspective.
Very good point and feedback. And also, I think there's this stigma around speaking up. Speaking up doesn't mean you create an issue.
No.
There's a way to speak up. There's a way to say things.
Write it down before you do it.
What did our moms always tell us? There's 2 ways to say things.
Yes.
And it does matter.
Does.
It matters so much.
And you could be changing something. If you speak up, you could be changing the outcome for someone that comes after you.
Yep.
And so it may not change for you, but can you have an indirect impact on the person who comes up after you? And that's where my mindset goes from that perspective.
Yeah.
And I have to let things go off my chest or I'm not going to be able to move forward. And so it's been very difficult because I don't, like I said, I want to, you know, it's that facade you put up of yourself. I'm strong, I'm this, but I'm not strong.
Yeah, you're not strong all the time. And it's okay not to be.
And it's okay. It's okay.
But I think some of us maybe, and I don't know, others that are hearing this might have gone through this, but we were in an industry where it wasn't acceptable to have emotions, right? We grew up in an industry where we thought the type A sort of bulldozer leader was the leader. And so maybe I made this mistake. I felt like I had to fit that mold early on in my career when I became a leader. And then I started changing because I was like, I'm not gonna, there's certain things that I want my team to speak up. I want them to feel like they can make a decision. I would rather them make a decision and make a bad decision, but at least they made a decision. Right, because now their decision-making process is continuously being pressure tested, which will eventually make them very good at understanding, you know, what metrics they need to look at, the competition that's out there. Like, you know, when in their decision-making process, there are probably checks and balances you go through. Unless they have that experience, they're not going to get to that level.
Well, and I think
accepting that they can make a bad decision is important.
And I think what goes back to is, from a leader perspective, and what I learned later in my career is, when we go through interviews, I'm interviewing you as a leader.
Yeah.
Forget the money sometimes. Now, we do like money. I like my nice things. I'm not going to lie about that. My maintenance fee is a little high to look like this. But picking the right leader for you. And I feel like, even if it's like, and it's the person, it could be your direct manager, it could be different mentors. And I had an amazing manager when I was at JP Morgan Chase.
That's great.
And he told me, he was leaving at the time, transitioning to a new company. And he told me, you know, he gave advice to the person that was about to manage me and said, listen, when Janitra walks in the room, she is the youngest in the room. She's probably the only woman and she's Black. She has 3 things to overcome when she walks into a room.
Wow.
And I love the fact that he was, I never
he
had
was
to say that.
Self-aware.
He was self-aware.
He was aware of what you were going through, which that's a good leader.
And this is coming from
talk about
a white man.
Talk about a great leader.
It was amazing to feel like seen. I felt seen, like my whole self we talked about.
Yeah.
I felt seen from that perspective of the things that he saw. She has to overcome all this and still to be excellent. And it kind of goes back to what my mom taught me. My mom taught me at a very young age, you have to work twice as hard to be just as good. And you have to work 3 times as hard if you want to sit at the head of the table. And I've been working 3 times as hard ever since from that perspective.
But hard and smart.
And smart.
Because we also have learned lessons. We've learned lessons.
We
because I will say, I mean, there were two people who would walk out of the building at past 10 p.m.
Yes.
As you and I here.
And we thought that was okay.
We thought it was okay. It's not okay.
We're shooting in the lights. when the night staff knows who you are in the building,
That's
is a problem.
That's a problem. I remember I was in Delaware and I left late from the office one day. I was visiting there, and the security guard's like, "You're still here?" He's like, "You can't go by yourself." I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Wilmington, no.
I didn't even think about it. I was like, I didn't even think about it, you know? But, we have learned. We've evolved. We've become smarter.
And doing stuff for yourself. I think that
balance
is very key. So it goes back to like that burnout feeling. And like you said, learning things about yourself that you're like, oh, I don't like this. I'm a hard worker. I'm probably always on 150%. So when I'm down, I'm at 100%. And that's kind of like my gauge. But I realized I was depressed because of how hard I was working.
You were feeling burnt out?
I was feeling so burnt out.
You didn't have time for yourself?
No, I had bags under my eyes. And the pandemic actually helped me to take time out for myself.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't blame it on, I was working for this manager. No, what were you doing, Janitra?
Yeah.
And so I made time for myself. I now have a workout schedule. I work out almost every day. And that is for me and my health and my benefit. I treat myself to a spa day every quarter.
Yeah.
And I shut my phone off, different things like that. I turn my notifications off at nighttime so that people are emailing or something's happening. I don't need to see it because I have to have mental shutdown.
Look at you all grown up.
I'm growing up.
Look at you.
I'm
You know
trying.
why? You know why? Because you have now learned, like I had to learn the hard way, that you cannot balance work and life. Work is part of your life.
Correct.
Manage your life. Work is part of that.
Agree.
Manage your life. When I started doing that, I feel like one, I'm in a better place. But two, I even think as a leader, I'm a better leader. As a businesswoman, I'm a better businesswoman. You are now sitting here as chief product officer. So it has actually helped you move forward.
It does.
Right?
And it helps me also. I'm very big right now at this point in my career on giving back and mentoring.
Mentoring, help influencing like others around you. Yeah, it's so
because I want
key.
you to learn from my mistakes.
Right.
I want you to be better than me.
Right.
And I don't mean my success better. I mean like just being a better you.
Yeah, I call it being a business parent.
Yes,
I am now 100% a business parent. I
like that.
got all my babies, and I teach, so I got like way too many babies now. But I got all my babies. I'm like, come here.
And I think that's key. Even I leave different companies, I still check in on people. I still check on like people who used to report to me. I tell people I'm one text message away.
Because we're human.
We're human. And you know what? I think what's key is that what has helped me as a manager, moving into more manager roles in the past couple of years is, like I said, understanding people bringing in wholesale. So my thing is this: when people have a bad day or they make a mistake, I ask myself, why is a reasonable person doing this? And you can have different things in life that you may not want to share with me, and that's okay. Now, what I do though is I look for patterns. Now, this is a pattern behavior. We need to have a conversation. But if this is not a pattern, I have to say you have something going on. And me being a good manager and trying to share stuff about my life, share things that have gone on. That has helped because I have, like I said,
transparent.
You have to be very transparent,
yeah.
or you won't know what's going on in somebody's life. You have no idea what people are putting up with from a day-to-day perspective. And
it's so much more important now in a digital world to bring your human to work as a leader.
I think that's very key. If you,
if you want to retain employees, it's key.
That's a whole nother topic.
All right. So Janitra, oh my gosh. One, thank you for being open and transparent about your growth journey, because that speaks so much more volumes than sitting here and talking about, this job, that job. Those are all pieces to it, but your mental health and fitness, your growth and knowledge is so key to future success. And the soft skills, that should be these skills.
Yes.
So to close us out, share any parting words with us, any inspiration, what motivates you, anything we may not know about you.
So when I say what motivates me, I work from home, right? And so underneath my computer, there sits a picture of my grandfather.
Okay.
And the reason I have that photo of my grandfather there is because I remember when, I hear the story about how my grandfather skipped a grade and went to a better school that was in a white neighborhood, and how after school, because this is back in the 50s,
yes,
there was racism, and they would chase him home, and he would have to run 20 blocks home.
Oh, Lord.
20 blocks.
Yeah.
Because what are you doing in our school? He was that smart, skipped a grade.
Oh, wow.
And so when I'm going through something professionally or personally,
you reflect
I reflect on that, and I look at that photo, and I have to remind myself I have his blood running through my veins.
Oh,
and if he can do it,
that got me motivated.
so can I.
Goosebumps.
And that photo is so key if I'm about to do a presentation or something like that, and I'm nervous. That's what I look at, and I reflect on that, and I have to remind myself, that reminds me of my roots and where I come from that perspective. And this man ran those 20 blocks.
Wow.
To get a better education.
Right.
I didn't have to do any running.
Yeah.
But he ran. So I think that is my motivation from that perspective.
I love it.
That is a huge part of me that, I love that photo of my grandfather, and you can say something slick to me on camera, I want to look at that photo. Right. What did he deal with? Are you running? You're not running. Okay. So I can go back to the meeting. And I think that's key from that perspective.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Janitra. This is going to be such an inspirational talk. Why? Because it's real and transparent. And I think that rawness is needed. We can't grow without it.
No.
Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you.